Mid lane is probably the most played role in the game, and most people think it's easy. Just pick a mage and spam your skills right. That's true to an extent, but only if you're just playing the role to a quarter of its potential. A true master of mid lane knows how to control the tempo and exert great influence on any match. Now, there are already plenty of guides out there that focus on how to play specific heroes, focusing on things like emblems and item builds. But this guide isn't about that. I want to share with you guys the fundamentals of mid lane itself, stuff that actually makes you a better mid laner, and not just better at one hero. Okay, so let's get started right away. Every match can be split into several phases, and the first one is what I call the very early phase, which covers the first 2 minutes of the game. This is where your entire early game gets set up, so make sure to do it right. As soon as the game starts, you need to go down to the mid lane to meet the first wave. But before you even get there, make sure to watch your minimap. Keep your eyes on where the enemy roamer and jungler are, if they appear on the map. Sometimes they'll show up at mid to help their mid laner fast clear the first wave to release them for an early first rotation. If you see them coming, play it safe. Don't try to contest the wave against 2 people. Just stay back and don't die. But if your roamer is with you, you can choose to be more aggressive. Your main goal in these first 2 minutes is simple. Clear the first wave and get to level 2, and if possible, faster than the enemy mid laner does. Why is this so important? Because mid lane is the shortest lane in the game. You reach the minion wave first before any other lane, and you can clear it the fastest. This means that you're the first player on the map to be free to rotate, besides the roamer who doesn't have any laning duties. This advantage is yours to use, and I'll talk more about rotations in just a bit. When you hit level 2 first, you get several advantages. First, if the enemy hasn't finished clearing their wave yet, they're stuck at level 1 with 1 skill, while you're already level 2 with 2 skills. This means you can apply real pressure on them, trade aggressively, maybe force them to miss a minion or 2, or even force them to waste their flicker or purify early. This little move that may seem insignificant could just be the start of an early snowball that impacts the rest of the match. Even if you can't find an opportunity to pressure them directly, hitting level 2 first means you can rotate earlier than they can. You'll be better positioned for whatever play is developing on the map, which brings us to the tricky part of playing mid lane. Mid lane has a huge advantage because it's in the center of the map. You have quick access to all areas including both jungles and both side lanes. But this great power comes with great responsibility. Rotation is key, but where and how to rotate depends entirely on what's happening in that specific game. Most guides will just tell you to go gank gold lane, and while that's not the worst advice, it's also not always the best thing to do. Sometimes your team lineup is built for early aggression and your jungler wants to invade the enemy jungle. In that case, the best move is probably going with them to help secure the invasion. Other times, your own jungle is getting invaded and you need to rotate there to defend it. The key is understanding there's rarely a clear-cut correct answer. But what I can do is give you a decision-making framework to help you figure out what's likely the best choice. I want you to think of yourself as the fire department of your team. Your goal is to find out where the fires are and put them out before they spread. But you can't be everywhere at once, so you need to prioritize. So here are 5 things I want you to consider when planning a rotation. First, check if the play is even winnable. Don't rotate to teammates who are already dead or running away with no health. By the time you get there, the fight is over and you just wasted your time. Only move towards situations where your presence can actually change the outcome. Second, look at where all the enemies are and how much HP they have left. Ganking an enemy with low HP is more ideal because it's obviously easier to secure the kill and create an advantage in that area of the map. If you see a half health enemy overextended in gold lane versus a full health enemy playing safe in EXP lane, the choice should be obvious. Third, think about your team composition. If your team is built for early aggression and your jungler wants to invade, you should probably be helping with that. If your team is more about scaling and playing safe, focus on farming and only rotate for guaranteed plays. Your team strategy should influence where you spend your time. Fourth, look at what you'll gain versus what you'll lose. If rotating to gold lane gets you a kill plus their turret, that's absolutely worth missing a wave at mid. If rotating to help your jungler just scares off enemy invaders but secures nothing, maybe it's not worth it. You're trading your farm and experience for whatever happens in that rotation, so make sure the trade is actually good. Fifth, use your eyes and assess which lane actually needs your help. If gold lane is already snowballing and EXP lane is getting destroyed, maybe your presence at the EXP side turns that lane around. If both side lanes are doing fine, help your jungler secure objectives and control the river. Sometimes the entire map is on fire and it's genuinely hard to choose where to go. When that happens, go to where you think you have the best chance of winning the situation. I can't tell you exactly where that is because every game and situation is different, but the good news is that this decision-making skill will come with time and experience. One critical point you absolutely must remember before any rotation. Make sure you cleared your wave before rotating. Unless you know what you're doing, this is non-negotiable. If you leave your lane with the wave sitting in the middle or push toward you, you're going to lose gold and experience to your turret while you're gone. In total, there'll be 3 minion waves between the start of the game up till the second minute, and it's important not to miss any of them. There are 3 advantages to always making sure your wave is cleared before rotating. Firstly, you ensure that you're always maximizing the resources offered to you, therefore ensuring that you have the items and levels needed to compete. Secondly, the enemy has to respond to your minions pushing into his turret if he hasn't cleared them, forcing your opponent to delay their rotation or miss out on farm. Thirdly, this keeps your mid lane turret healthy, as enemy minions are needed if the enemies want to attack your turret. This third point is actually pretty important, as the outer mid lane turret is one of the most important and strategic advantages your team has on the map. It offers vision and safety at an extremely key choke point to deny map control and space in that area. If the outer mid turret is destroyed, this opens up easier invades for the enemy, especially to your purple buff, since there's less safety and vision nearby. So make sure to keep your mid lane turret healthy as much as you can, even after the early phases. Let's talk about the actual rotation paths. You've got 2 main options when you want to move somewhere, through the river or through the jungle. The river is faster. You get where you're going quicker, which means less time away from your lane. But the river is also more dangerous. You're completely exposed out there. If the enemy team has any map sense at all, they know you're rotating the moment they see you're done clearing your wave. Only take the river path if you've recently seen enemies on the map, and you know it's safe. If you have no recent vision of most of the enemies, especially the enemy roamer and jungler, assume someone's waiting in a bush to ruin your day. The second path is through your own jungle. You move through your own territory, so you're way less likely to get intercepted. It takes a bit longer, but sometimes those extra few seconds are worth it for not walking into an ambush. Once you've rotated to a side lane successfully, don't force a play that your teammates aren't ready for. The worst rotations are the ones where you show up and your teammate has already given up, leaving you in a bad position with nothing to show for the time you invested. If the teammate has any game sense, they would have seen you coming and prepared for the gank. Sending an attack ping is sometimes helpful to alert them of your intentions, so it doesn't hurt to do that. If possible, your angle of approach for the gank should ideally be cutting off the escape path of the target. But remember, this is in the ideal situation, where you're confident the enemy has no backup to counter gank. Most of the time, this is not the case, so as a squishy mid laner, you should approach the gank in a way that also allows you to escape if you need to. Don't force yourself into a position where you cannot escape if you need to. The worst case scenario is if you tried to gank, failed to kill any targets, and ended up dying yourself. So do your best to avoid that. If your rotation works and you get a kill or force enemies to retreat, don't just stand around. Try to look for any other objectives or advantages you can gain for your team, such as taking turret shields or helping your jungler to secure the enemy side jungle monsters. If there's nothing on the map for you, just return to mid, so you're prepared for the next wave. Every second you're away from mid is a second you're not getting experience and gold, so make your rotations count and then get back to your lane when you can. Your main goal in the very early phase, whether through farming every mid lane minion wave or securing kills and assists from successful rotations, is to reach level 4 by the 2-minute mark. Why level 4 specifically? Because that's when the first turtle spawns, and with it comes the first major team objective fight of the game. This signals the transition from the very early phase and into the early phase proper. Now, most of these principles in the very early phase can actually be applied throughout the game, so make sure to keep them in mind as we move on to the later phases. If you forget something, you can always come back to this section and refresh your memory. So now we've made it past the very early phase, here comes the first major team objective of the game, which spawns at exactly the 2-minute mark of every game. The first turtle always spawns on the EXP side of the map. This means the contest is typically going to be a 4 versus 4 situation. Expect both EXP laners to be there, along with both junglers, both roamers, and of course both mid laners. The gold laners usually stay in their lane to keep farming and pushing. Ideally, at 1 minute and 50 seconds, you should be at the mid lane to clear the final wave before the turtle. This should get you to level 4 and also force the enemy mid to respond to the shove. They'll have to either miss the farm or delay their rotation to the turtle. Timing your arrival at the turtle matters. Don't show up too early and just stand around wasting time when you could be farming. But don't show up too late either, or you'll lose positioning and your team might already be at a disadvantage. Before the contest even starts, assess whether your team should actually fight for this turtle or give it up. Look at your team's situation. If you're already down in kills and levels, if multiple teammates are low on health, or if the enemy has better positioning around the turtle pit, fighting might not be worth it. It's better to give up the first turtle and stay alive than to force a bad fight. Lose the turtle anyway and hand over multiple kills. If it looks doomed, ping retreat and let it go. If you are going to contest, then positioning is everything. As a mid laner, you're a high priority target because you're one of the main damage dealers. But remember that you're also squishy and easy to kill. I see many new mid laners cosplay as tanks and just run up blind into areas with no vision. That's exactly what you shouldn't do. Make sure to take position behind your tanks and near your escape routes. You want to be close enough to contribute damage but far back enough that the enemy can't easily jump on you. Once the turtle spawns and the fight is developing, your role depends on the situation. If the enemy team is late to the contest and your jungler has already started bursting the turtle down, help them. Use your abilities to damage the turtle and secure it as fast as possible before enemies can contest properly. But if both teams are there and it's a standoff, save your skills. Especially if you have crowd control abilities, don't waste them on the turtle. You'll need them for the fight that's about to happen. Your main job during this contest is to make it difficult for enemies to approach the turtle. Use your poke abilities to harass them. If they try to walk up, punish them. If they commit to a fight, that's when you unload your damage. Targeting is absolutely critical whether in these objective fights or just regular team fights. Look for the enemy's squishy damage dealers. Usually they're mid or gold laners. Try to remove them from the fight by chunking their health or even killing them if possible. If you can take out their main damage source, the rest of the fight becomes much easier. However, when the turtle gets to critical HP, your priority shifts. Try to disrupt the enemy jungler if you can. Use your crowd control to stop them from securing the objective. If you can stun or deal high damage to them at the right moment, it's going to give your jungler a much better chance of securing the turtle with their retribution. The golden rule for turtle contests: it's usually not worth dying for it. Don't take unnecessary risks, don't chase too deep. Don't put yourself in a position where you can't escape. If you die for the turtle and the enemy still gets it anyway, you've just made things worse. Stay alive, contribute what you can, and if the fight goes bad, get out. This changes later in the game for lot contests, especially after the 18-minute mark when securing these objectives becomes even more crucial. Sometimes sacrificing yourself to secure a late game lot is worth it because late game lots can have more impact than a single hero. But that's a complex topic for another time. For now, during these early turtle fights, the general guideline is simple. Don't die unnecessarily. Once the turtle fight is over, whether you secured it or not, you have decisions to make. If you won the contest and got the turtle, look at your health and the map situation. If you're healthy and enemies are dead or retreating, this is your window to push advantages. See if you can finish them off, or if not, do some damage to their turrets, take their jungle camps, or anything that can extend your lead. But if you're low on health, don't get greedy. Recall if you need to, and then go back to your lane to farm. If you lost the contest, damage control becomes your priority. Don't panic and don't try to force revenge plays. The enemy team just got a buff and possibly kills, which means they're stronger than you right now. Your job is to minimize further losses. Defend your turrets. If they're pushing mid, clear the wave under your turret and don't let them take the plating for free. Farm safely and avoid risky fights. Look to secure farm on the opposite side of the map where they aren't. If they're pushing EXP side after taking turtle, maybe you can sneak a gold lane gank. Or you could help EXP to defend the lane. The key is staying even in gold and experience despite losing the objective. Whatever happens after the turtle contest, eventually you need to get back to mid lane. Clear your waves, maintain your turret health, and prepare for the next rotation opportunity. You're going to be repeating this for at least the next 3 minutes, so remember and apply the rotation tips we've talked about in the very early phase. There can be a total of 3 turtle spawns in a single match. Turtles will spawn 2 minutes after the previous one dies, so just know that there is a short window between each major objective contest. The same principles apply to these later turtles. Wave management before rotating, smart positioning during fights, target prioritization, and staying alive. Around the 5-minute mark, the game fundamentally changes. All outer turret shields are removed, and bonus minions in the side lanes stop spawning. Now all the lanes spawn the same type of minions, and most players should have completed their first major item. Junglers can now farm lanes without the resource penalty that existed earlier. This is when the structure of the early game starts to break down, and teams start grouping up and rotating more often. Your role shifts from being the fire department putting out small fires to being a key teamfight contributor that everyone expects at every major play. You're not just helping anymore, you're essential. Your mid turret becomes significantly more vulnerable during this phase. Junglers and roamers are free to rotate aggressively, which means you might suddenly see 3 or 4 enemies showing up mid to push your turret down. When this happens, don't try to defend it alone if you're outnumbered. Ping for help, and if no one responds, give up the turret. Your life is worth more than the turret. What makes mid phase difficult is that there are multiple things happening simultaneously and you can't be everywhere. The second turtle might be spawning, but the side lane turrets are also under pressure. Meanwhile, the enemy is invading your jungle. You have to make constant decisions about where your presence matters most. The decision-making framework from the very early phase still applies, and we can still use it to try to find the best place to be. But now the stakes are higher and the tempo is faster. Is the play winnable? What do we gain versus what we lose? Which objective is more valuable? These are the questions you need to be asking yourself with each play you make. Team fights in the mid phase happen constantly, and you need to understand your role clearly. While some mid lane heroes can initiate fights, oftentimes you should not be the initiator. Unless your team literally has nobody else who can start a fight, that's not your job. You're usually the follow-up damage. Someone else goes in, absorbs attention and cooldowns, and that's when you step up and unload your abilities. Position like you did during turtle fights, behind your tanks and near your escape roads. The same principles apply here, just more frequently. Don't make the enemy's job easy by standing where they can reach you. Try to position near the edge of where your skills can hit, so you're maximizing your range and allowing as much peeling space as possible. You need to make it difficult for the enemy to reach you, and not just relying on your teammates to peel for you. Your target priority remains the same as objective fights. Focus on the enemy damage dealers when possible, but deal with immediate threats to yourself first. Know when to commit and when to poke from safety. If your team has a clear advantage and the fight is going well, step forward and press on with your damage. If the fight is messy and you're not sure who's winning, stay back and poke. Deal damage from range without fully committing. The worst thing you can do is dive into an uncertain fight and die immediately, leaving your team at a major disadvantage. Teamfights are important, but you still need goal and experience to stay relevant. If you're always at fights and never farming, and those fights don't lead to any kills or objectives, you fall behind in items and become useless. If you're always farming and never showing up, your team loses fights and you still lose the game anyways. The balance is knowing when you can skip a fight to farm and when you absolutely must be there. If your team is taking an uncontested turtle and no enemies are nearby, you don't need to be there. Let them secure it while you farm a side wave or clear mid. You're not adding value by standing around watching your jungler kill the turtle when you could be getting gold elsewhere. But if a team fight is developing around an objective, you need to be there. If the enemy is contesting turtle, you need to be there. If your team is pushing into the enemy base, you need to be there. Major plays that decide the game take priority over farm every single time. Between objectives and fights, catch side waves when it's safe. If you see a big wave pushing toward your turret in gold lane and no immediate fights are happening, go clear it. Just make sure you know where enemies are before you commit to farming alone. Don't face check bushes, don't farm deep without backup. Getting caught and killed while farming a side wave is one of the fastest ways to throw your team's advantage. Let's talk about the specific objectives and when they matter. The second and third turtles spawn during this phase, following the same 2-minute intervals. They're still valuable for the team goal and the same contesting principles apply. But the more interesting and important objective, which is the first lord, spawns at 8 minutes. This baby lord isn't as powerful as the later lords, but it's still a significant objective. It still helps with turret pushes by spawning super minions on all lanes. Whether you should contest it depends on your team's state. If you're ahead and have control, absolutely take it. If you're even, it's worth fighting for. If you're behind and the enemy has better positioning, sometimes giving it up is smarter than forcing a bad fight and falling further behind. Turrets during this phase become major targets. Losing any turret gives the enemy more map control and makes your jungle more dangerous to farm. Defending your turrets is important, but don't die for them. If enemies are collapsing on a turret with numbers, ping for help, and if help doesn't come, let the turret go. You can't defend structures that are already lost. Conversely, if you're ahead, push for enemy turrets. Taking their outer turrets restricts their farming space and makes it easier to invade their jungle. After winning a fight, don't just recall immediately. Look for turrets you can pressure while enemies are dead. If you're behind in the mid phase, you can't just do the same thing as if you're winning. Your approach needs to adjust, and you can't take the same risks as when you're ahead. You need to play more safely and stick to areas of the map where you have vision and no enemies aren't nearby. You need to avoid fights you can't win. If the enemy team is grouped and looking for a fight, don't give it to them unless you have a clear advantage. Let them take an uncontested objective if it means your team stays alive. It's better to give up a turtle and stay even than to force a fight, lose the turtle anyway, and also give up 3 kills. Instead, you can try to look for pickoffs on isolated enemies. If you spot someone farming alone or walking through your jungle without backup, that's your opportunity. These small wins can slowly add up and get you back into the game. On the flip side, if you're ahead, you need to maintain your discipline. Winning teams tend to get overconfident and then they overextend, creating fights that they don't need to take, and then suddenly the goal lead disappears. What you should actually do is pressure objectives systematically. Take enemy turrets that have minions crashing into them and secure more map and vision control with good positioning. Make sure to take every turtle and lord. And if the enemy tries to contest, punish them for that mistake. Make the enemy team react to you instead of giving them time to farm back into the game. But make sure to do it smartly. Don't just blindly dive into their base alone. Don't chase kills into areas where you have no vision, where an ambush might be waiting for you. Don't give them the comeback opportunity your enemies are desperately waiting for. Play discipline, take the objectives, and close out the game. You've managed to hold the game up till the 12th minute mark. Now we have reached the point where mistakes are much harder to recover from. One bad teamfight doesn't just cost an objective. It can cost you several of them, or even the game. Welcome to the late phase, where everything you've built for the past 12 minutes can disappear in a single moment of poor judgment. When you die now, you're out of the game for a long time. It's going to be at least 30 seconds before you can come back, and it can be even longer depending on how late the game has gone. That's enough time for the enemy team to take Lord, push down 2 turrets, and position for the next major objective. Every decision you make needs to factor in this risk. Before you commit to any play, ask yourself if it's worth potentially being dead for the next 30 seconds or more. Chasing that low health enemy into an area with zero vision might get you a kill, but it might also get you killed. And if that happens, your team loses the next fight because you're not there. That doesn't mean you should play scared and not take any risks. It means to play smart and only take calculated risks that are worth it. You should still apply the same principles of positioning and rotations that I've already given you before in the early sections of this guide. They are still effective, even this late in the game. At the 12-minute mark, Lord becomes the most important objective on the map. 12-minute Lords are significantly stronger. They are tankier and can push lanes by themselves while your team pressures elsewhere. Securing Lord at this stage often translates directly into taking multiple turrets or even winning the game outright. This means Lord fights are often when games get decided. Your team needs to be grouped and ready for these contests well before Lord actually spawns. Vision control is important in these moments, so always make sure to be watching the map. Check and see where enemies are showing up recently. If everyone's missing, assume they're setting up around Lord. Contesting Lord when you don't know where enemies are is a coin flip. Sometimes you walk into 5 people and get wiped. Sometimes you catch them off guard and steal it. The more information you have, the better your decision making. If you have no information and your team is even or behind, sometimes the smart play is avoiding the contest entirely and defending your base instead. But when you do commit to a Lord fight, commit properly. Group with your team. Don't arrive at the pit and go in one by one. Apply the same fighting principles from earlier phases, but understand that mistakes here are game losing, not just minor setbacks that are easily recovered. Positioning principles from earlier still apply. You're still a high priority target with even more damage output at this stage. Every assassin, every diver, every engaged tool the enemy team has is looking for you. Your escape plan needs to exist before you enter the fight. Know where you can retreat if things go bad. Don't walk into a fight with no exit strategy and then panic when someone jumps on you. Target priority from earlier phases still matters, but context becomes more important. The default is still enemy damage dealers, but assess the situation actively. If their tank just dove onto you and you're being pressured, surviving takes priority over perfect targeting. If their assassin is constantly hunting you, sometimes focusing them down first is the right call, even if it's not optimal in theory. Stay flexible as the fight develops. If their carry is out of position and vulnerable, jump on that opportunity. If their carry is well protected and you can't reach them safely, poke from range and wait for a better opening. When objectives are involved, remember that disrupting the enemy jungler when the objective gets low can be more valuable than getting kills. A well-timed stun on their jungler as Lord hits critical HP might secure the objective even if you don't kill anyone. And if you have high burst damage, you might even be able to compete and last hit the objective. At this stage of the game, walking around alone without knowing where enemies are is asking to die. If you need to catch a side wave, check the map first. Where did you last see enemies? How long ago? If it's been more than 10 seconds and you don't know where they are, assume they're nearby. Track major cooldowns when you can. Did their assassin just use their ultimate in a fight? You have a window where they're less threatening. Did their tank burn their engage tool? You have time before they can start the next fight. Information about what the enemy has used and what's still available helps you make better decisions. While most matches should end within the late phase, matches can sometimes get stretched past 18 minutes, and this is when the endgame begins. Past this mark and death timers are upwards of 50 seconds or more. A single team fight where 2 or 3 heroes on a team are dead is often enough to end the game. Everyone is at full build, or at least close to it, which means mistakes are punished heavily and quickly. 80-minute Lords can end games by themselves. They don't just help push lanes. They can solo push to the enemy base while tanking turrets and dealing massive damage. Securing Lord at this stage almost always translates into taking out several inhibitor turrets or outright winning the game. This completely changes the risk calculation around Lord fights. Earlier in the game, dying for Lord was usually not the best trade. Now, it's sometimes worth sacrificing yourself if it means your team secures Lord. If you make a game-changing play that wipes the enemy team or gets the Lord, that's often the right play, even if you die in the process. Your 50-second death timer doesn't matter if the entire enemy team is dead, or the Lord pushes to their base and wins the game. But this doesn't mean you should be reckless. It means that if that opportunity presents itself, you should be willing to make the high-risk, high-reward play. If you or your team can secure Lord without you dying, that's obviously better. But if you're going to make that play, make sure that you have a high chance of securing it, otherwise, it's still going to be a bad idea. Everything we've talked about during the late phase still applies here. Practice good map awareness, don't rush into fights unnecessarily, and try to stand behind your frontliners. I know this is starting to get naggy, but it's important, which is why I've repeated it so much. Endgame is where your mental game gets tested the hardest. The pressure is intense since every mistake is punished heavily. It's easy to panic and easy to make emotional decisions. But stay calm and take a breath. Focus on what you can control. You can't control if your teammate gets caught or whether the enemy makes a perfect play. But you can control your own positioning, your own decision making, your own execution. If a fight goes bad, Don't start typing in chat to shit talk your team. That's just lowering your chances of winning. The game isn't over until the base is destroyed. Keep playing. Keep looking for the opportunity to turn it around. All it takes is one teamfight to turn things around. The endgame is decided by who makes fewer mistakes under maximum pressure. Stay focused, stay disciplined, and when you see the winning play, take it. Alright, so that's all I have for you for today. If you're new to mid lane, you're obviously not going to learn and master all of this immediately. But the good news is that every game is a learning opportunity. Every mistake teaches you something, and every win shows you what works. The key is to keep improving, and to keep refining your decision making while applying these fundamentals. Focus on one thing at a time. If your rotations are weak, focus on that for a few games. If your positioning in fights needs work, then make sure to be more mindful of that. Gradual improvement in specific areas eventually add up to your overall mastery of the role. I hope you've enjoyed and learned something from this guide. And with that, I'll see you guys in the next one.